Today, Medellin is easily one of the safest cities in Colombia, even in Latin America. It is incredibly developed, it's got nice transportation, it's got people who are safe, who are friendly, and who are always going to welcome foreigners. But when people think of Medellin, maybe about 40 years ago, there's probably only one person that they think of. They probably think of Pablo Escobar. Well, today we're going to be digging deep into the past of Medellin, and we're going to explore the story of Pablo Escobar and how he rose to power here in Medellin. So go ahead, sit back. It's going to be a dark story, but this is the story of Pablo Escobar told right here in the city of Medellin, Colombia. Good morning, guys, and welcome back to the beautiful city of Medellin. We're currently in El Poblado, but as you probably know from this video, we are going to sort of be doing a Pablo Escobar tour, but we're doing it by ourselves. We're not really going to be following a guide. We've sort of just found some places in Medellin that we want to follow, and we're going to go ahead and do that. Honestly, I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know if we're going to learn anything, but we're going to try our best and see what we can do here in Medellin. Let's first go ahead, let's get the day started. Let's get back on the beautiful metro system here in Medellin. Now, before we officially begin this tour, there are a few things that need to be said. First, the point of this video is not to idolize Pablo Escobar. It's not to commend any of the actions he did. That's not the point. This video is only purely to give you the story of Pablo Escobar by visiting the sites here in Medellin, by telling the story of Pablo Escobar by being in the city where he's from. It's not designed to say, wow, he was a great guy. That's not the point of it. Second, it's important for us to set some context first of when Pablo Escobar came to power. You know, in the 16s and 70s, how come, well in the 70s mostly, how come it is that he became so powerful? And now yesterday I was talking to a guy who actually used to work under Pablo Escobar, and what he was telling me is that here in the city back in the 70s, people were very, very poor. People had no food, people had no shoes, and most of the time what you get is you get arepa with butter, and that would be your food. So it was a dark, very poor time for a lot of Colombians living here in Medellin. So when Pablo Escobar was able to use money to buy people over, to use the drug money that he had to sort of convince people to work for him, it wasn't really a choice. There was no other option to make money. It was like a no-brainer to go and work for him, which is how he started to gain so much influence and power. We'll be learning more about it once we climb up this hill, but first, we gotta climb up the hill. So let's go ahead and let's head up to our first stop for the day. Well, our first stop here in our Medellin tour of Pablo Escobar is this place right here, Barrio Pablo Escobar. Now, if you know Spanish, you know that barrio means neighborhood. So this is the neighborhood of Pablo Escobar. Now, Pablo Escobar didn't actually live here. He doesn't live here. He actually lives, his house is in Hacienda Nápoles, and the area that he was really king of was in Vigado, which is not exactly here. It's a little bit farther south from here. But why is this place called Barrio Pablo Escobar? Well, the reason is because Pablo Escobar had a lot of money, and remember, he gave it to the poor. He's often known as the Robin Hood of the poor of Medellin, because he would really try and help the people of Medellin, those who were living in the slums, in the comunas, the areas that were not as nice. That's what he did. Well, in memory of everything that Pablo Escobar did, the people who lived here, who really benefited from everything that Pablo Escobar did, named this place after him, Barrio Pablo Escobar. And to this day, this name has stuck. When you see buses coming up here, there'll literally be buses that say, going to Pablo Escobar. So it's still really important, and he's really popular here. People who are living here really benefited from everything that he did. They really were thankful for the money that he donated to this neighborhood. But we're gonna learn a little bit more now. We're gonna go ahead and head up. I think there's a little museum, there's a few showcases here, so let's go ahead and check out the neighborhood of Pablo Escobar. order to understand Pablo Escobar, we've got to start here at the barrio, and there's a little exhibition here, a lot of photos of all the different times of Escobar and of course Medellin in general. So we start off with here, which is an image of what barrio here looked like so many years ago. People literally living off the trash, no money, nothing. That's when Pablo Escobar comes in. As you can see, he's called the Robin Hood Paisa. He's basically the Robin Hood of the people who are living here. And what does he do for this community exactly? Well, if you look at it, he literally built 500 homes. So we've been walking up the step, and this is where the wall is. This is where you saw the Barrio Pablo Escobar wall. That's where it is. This entire community was built overnight by Pablo Escobar. And actually even afterwards, his mother gifted the community all of this land up here and gave them to the community. That's why the community is so thankful to Pablo Escobar. And what's interesting is that afterwards, and if you look on it to this day, you won't find Barrio Pablo Escobar, not on Google Maps, not on any maps, not on Apple Maps. You won't find it anywhere. And that's because the government refuses to recognize this place as Barrio Pablo Escobar. They want to remove any trace of the narco-terrorism that happened back in the day. But because this community loved Pablo Escobar so much, that's why they built this wall here in order as a sign of protest, saying, look, we are still going to be Barrio Pablo Escobar. We are going to thank Pablo Escobar for everything he did. And if you think about it, you see all of these houses which are built overnight. That completely makes sense. Now, of course, inside this exhibition, they also have a lot of very interesting photos. So, for example, there's one of Pablo Escobar here. He's at the White House with his son as a joke to the Americans, like, you know, they couldn't catch him. There's one, oh, this is really interesting. This here is La Catedral. This is the prison where he was kept. And inside the prison, he built his own prison. He did not go to a state prison. He did not go to a prison run by the Colombian government. He went to a prison that he built for himself. And inside this prison, he took photos with a Russian hat, and the reason for that is because he wanted to sort of parody the whole situation, and basically by putting on a Russian hat, remember they were in the Cold War against the United States at the time, it was sort of him showing solidarity with the Russians. This community is so thankful for Pablo Escobar. Like I said, you look here and you see all the houses that he built. I mean, that is incredible. It's no wonder that the people here are so thankful. The guy here who's working here literally said his family got a house right there, and Pablo Escobar built that house for him. So, of course, the people here are very thankful. And the worst part is actually for them, a lot of the people here actually don't really like the government, because after Pablo Escobar died, what the government did is they legalized all the houses here, because, I mean, they were built by a drug lord, so they weren't really exactly legal. They legalized it so they could tax the people here. But then they also wanted to get rid of Pablo Escobar's name, which is where the protest comes in. But people aren't exactly happy, you know, they weren't happy having all these houses built by Pablo Escobar and then getting taxed on it now because it suddenly became legal for the government to tax it. So that's why this place is still Barrio Pablo Escobar. Like I said, you won't find it on the map, but it still exists. It's right here. And we're going to go deeper into Barrio Pablo Escobar to see exactly what did Pablo Escobar do in this area. As I'm looking out into this street now, it's definitely taking a different toll, realizing that all of these buildings, everything here, was built by Pablo Escobar. These buildings would not exist if it wasn't for Pablo Escobar investing in, literally donating these houses to the local community here. So if you're wondering, you know, how did Pablo Escobar actually gain power in the first place? He appealed to the people. He built them houses just like the ones you see behind me. And that's how he first got his start. That's how he got people in the local community to support him. Now, of course, things that come later, we'll discuss that later. But trust me, he was so popular, he actually even became a congressman. He was actually part of the government of Colombia and was elected into Congress. But then, of course, his ambitions got bigger than that, and he wanted to be king of Colombia. And that's when, you know, all the stuff that happened later. But still, just knowing that this entire community exists because of Pablo Escobar, I mean, that is pretty crazy to have had. We are literally in the heart of Barrio Pablo Escobar now. I mean, these streets, this is where people live like normal, and these are probably kids of people who received the houses from Pablo Escobar. To me, it seemed like any other ordinary place here in Medellin. It's just like anywhere else, as like a little local community, little barrio. But once you know the history of this place, it will really register into your head exactly what this place is, the history behind this place, and how this led to the rise of Pablo Escobar in the first place. But of course, this is the starting point of our tour today. Let's go ahead, let's head on to another part of Medellin. We're gonna head back down and we're gonna head on to our next stop here in Medellin. Well, after becoming the Robin Hood of Colombia and helping out all the poor people like we saw today at Barrio Pablo Escobar, that's when things started going wrong. Pablo Escobar became more ambitious, and he didn't just want to be king of Medellin, he wanted to be king of Colombia. And that's when he started getting into some deeper trouble. That's when he started shipping more drugs overseas to the United States. And more importantly, that's when he started making an alliance with the cartel from Cali, made up of the Rodriguez brothers. But then afterwards, when he went to jail at La Catedral, which we saw photos of at Barrio Pablo Escobar, what happened was that he still wanted the other brothers, the Cali cartel, to pay them taxes. And when they didn't pay him taxes, well, you know, things didn't really go well. So then the world started turning on Pablo Escobar. He lost his allies in Cali, he lost his control in the government, he started losing people that would give him the power that he needed. And acting out of desperation, that's when we saw the beginning of narco-terrorism. That's when we started seeing the bombs going off in Plaza San Antonio. That was a place that was bombed by Pablo Escobar, and that was one of many places here in Medellin that was bombed when Pablo Escobar started getting very, very desperate to cling on to power. He even bombed airplanes. Nothing was going to stop Pablo Escobar from doing what he wanted. But the more he bombed, the more he got in trouble. The more authorities were looking for him, because the more the people of Colombia were thinking, well, we can't put up with this. Even some people, as we saw in Barrio Pablo Escobar, yes, they love him, but once the bombs started going off, they even started questioning, was this all worth it? Was Pablo Escobar worth it? Which finally led to one of the final chapters of Pablo Escobar, hiding here in Medellin in order to escape the authorities. That's where we're heading to right now. We're heading to the place where he was hiding. And now that building has been demolished, but we are going to go to the site of where he was hiding. So let's go ahead and let's see if we can find the spot here in the area of La Floresta in Medellin. We've made it. This right behind me is the site where Pablo Escobar was killed. He was hiding out here in one of these houses here, and then finally the Colombian police found him, they chased him, and they actually killed him right on the rooftop right up there. Of course, the building is no longer there. All we have is a graffitied wall, and that's the closest we're gonna get to thinking about where Escobar was killed. But nonetheless, it is incredible that this is the site where Pablo Escobar died, right up there. All the legendary images that you see of Pablo Escobar's death happened right here. Now, the interesting thing is that some people say Pablo Escobar actually wasn't killed by the Colombian police. The theory is actually that a lot of people believe Pablo Escobar killed himself, that he was never actually killed by the Colombian police. And the reason for that is there's actually quite a bit of evidence for it. It's not like a conspiracy theory. The reason they say that is because the troops that were there at the time, they were carrying big arms, and their bullets were really big. But Pablo Escobar was killed by a pistol, a bullet from a pistol. And since the cops weren't carrying a pistol, Pablo Escobar was. So the theory is that actually Pablo Escobar killed himself, that he wasn't actually killed by the Colombian police, but he shot himself before the cops could actually find him. Who knows? But officially, at least, Pablo Escobar was killed by the Colombian police right here on this roof behind me. Now, it might be interesting. You might be thinking, wow, look at this beautiful, shady place. You've got a river back here. The smart thing is that Pablo Escobar was a family man. He loved his family. And even when he was hiding here in exile, he was always communicating with his family. And they could only do it for like 40 seconds a day, because if it was longer than 40 seconds, the Americans and the Colombian government will be able to trace the calls and find out where he is. Right next to here is this river. That water helped to sort of diffract the radio waves, the code, so it was harder for the government to actually find where Escobar was hiding. So very, very smart of Escobar to find this location right behind me. But at the end of the day, there was one time where his son was on call with Pablo Escobar. They were calling for a little too long, longer than expected, and then finally, at the end, well, he got caught right here in this house. But this is the building that Pablo Escobar died in, right here on the rooftop. And we're gonna head on to our next site here in Pablo Escobar of Medellin. So imagine Pablo Escobar was hiding right there, and there's just an entire community of people living here who had no clue Pablo Escobar was hiding out in that house right over there. That's pretty crazy. Welcome to the district of Envigado, a little neighborhood in the southern part of Medellin. If you're coming from the south of Colombia up to Medellin, you'll probably come through here before you get to the main part of Medellin. But why are we here? Well, Envigado is the area that Pablo Escobar ran. He was basically the king of Envigado. And obviously, being king of Envigado wasn't enough. He needed to be king of Colombia, which led to all the problems later. But around this area, there are also a few things for us to check out. So let's go ahead, let's get out of the metro system, and let me show you some really interesting things here in the area of Envigado. We've come to Monte Sacro here in Envigado. This is basically a cemetery. It's a burial site, and there are many, many different graves here. The one we're trying to look for, Pablo Escobar's grave. Where is it? I have no clue at all. We're gonna go and try and figure it out. I feel like there's some tour guides taking people, so they're probably taking them to Pablo Escobar's grave. We're probably gonna follow them until we find Pablo Escobar's grave, but it's literally like, where is Waldo? Trying to find where Pablo Escobar's grave is. So let's go ahead and let's see if we can find where he's buried. Well, we haven't found Pablo Escobar's burial yet, but we did find someone else interesting. Griselda Lando del Trujillo, also known as the Black Widow. Why is she called the Black Widow? Well, she actually was one of the members of the cartel, and she was a deadly female assassin within Pablo's cartel. She actually invented ways of killing people here in Medellin. She invented the tactic where it's like two guys go on a motorbike, they attack someone and they kill them. Now she did spend some time in prison after Pablo fell and everything, but she still had a lot of enemies because of, you know, everything she did back in the day when she was working for Pablo. So she always had bodyguards, but she died in 2012 and she was shot 14 times at a meat store. And the crazy thing is, she was killed in the same way that she had invented. Two guys on a motorbike come, shoot her, and kill her. So it's a very, very dark story. And again, this is another one of those characters in Pablo Escobar's story that we haven't really touched much on. But the Black Widow is someone who people were telling me about when we went to the Barrio Pablo Escobar as well. So she is notorious here in Medellin, but we're still looking for Pablo's grave. Go ahead and let's go keep looking for Pablo's actual grave. So we've been playing Where's Waldo, or more like Where's Pablo, this whole time in the big green grass field all the way over there. But turns out he's actually right at the entrance. He's right here. So if you come here and you're looking for Pablo's grave, you don't need to venture into that big green field over there. He's literally right behind the church. Now, Pablo's grave is not just himself. Like I told you before, Pablo is a very, very big family man. Now, his wife and his kids are still alive, but his parents aren't. And that's why his parents are buried here. You've got his mother who's buried here, and his dad who is also buried here. His mother, I believe, died of diabetes, and his dad later died of a heart attack. But they are all buried here together as family, and it's not just his parents. He's got cousins, people like siblings that basically supported him throughout his whole entire reign of terror as a drug lord, and they're all buried here. But of course it's controversial because you see here there are flowers where Pablo is buried, and those are donated by people who support Pablo, who love Pablo, people who, for example, like in the barrio Pablo Escobar that we visited early today, who are so thankful for everything that Pablo has done. At the same time, the government is trying to get rid of the influence of narco trafficking, getting rid of the influence of drugs and the influence of Escobar. And that's also another battle, because how do you preserve your history while at the same time trying to make sure that it doesn't repeat itself, but recognizing the past and recognizing the people who love Pablo Escobar, because for a lot of them, he still is the Robin Hood of the people. It's a difficult dilemma, and of course, that's why it's actually pretty hard of a place to find on Google Maps. But you can still find it, and it's actually right here in Envigado, and here he is buried with his entire family. Written on his gravestone is something really interesting. It says, "You are a conqueror of impossible dreams, more than just the legends and sort of the symbol that you are today. Very few know the real you in your life." Kind of chilling, but at the same time, it shows again, you know, there's a different side of Pablo Escobar, that he was a family man, buried here with all of his relatives here. I mean, of course, that's for you to judge, but that's what's written on the tombstone of Pablo Escobar. I guess in a lot of ways, it's chilling to see that one of the most powerful men in the world, one of the biggest drug lords, actually the biggest ever drug lord, is just buried right there. It's chilling to know that at the end of the day, he just became a pile of ashes that's buried right there. But still, it is very, very dark and still yet interesting to come here and see where he's buried, and that he's buried with his whole family. I will have to say though, the burial site, it's a great view. You can see the entire city, the entire small skyscrapers in Envigado in the background. So if you want to get buried in Medellin, this is probably the place to do it. That is the life of Pablo Escobar here. But we got one more site to visit here in Envigado, so let's go ahead, let's get back on the metro, and let's head to our final stop for the day. Must be rush hour time back in Medellin, because this is the busiest I've ever seen the metro system. It is so crazy busy right now, and people are literally running to catch the train. We've come to probably the best place of this entire tour so far. It's a dog park, and there are literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 puppies that I can see already, and they're the cutest thing ever. But you might be wondering, why are you at a dog park? What does it have to do with Pablo Escobar? The assassinations, the bombings, and the many people who have died under the reign of narco terror under Pablo Escobar. This park here is the Parque de Inflexión. It's a reflection park, and it gives a voice to all those who have passed away, especially those who are politicians, judges, and a lot of very prominent people who really tried to fight Escobar, who tried to use the legal system, who tried to use government to fight Escobar, and who ultimately paid their life. That was the price that they had to pay in order to stop Escobar. And although today it's like a nice peaceful dog park, the history is sad. It's really, really depressing to see all the quotes that are written into stone tablets along the way of former politicians and ministers of justice and judges who have ruled against Escobar for so many years, trying to fight for Colombia to beat the narco-terrorism that he brought. This one right here, it says, "Bravery is not in sort of confronting the fall of disgrace, but confronting those with the power and the money to traffic drugs, to those who think that their criminal capacity and their economic capacity can sort of overstep and be above the state and the country." And this was actually said by the Minister of Justice, as you can see here, Mr. Bonilla, who actually ended up being assassinated by Pablo Escobar, and which sparked a whole ordeal, because when you kill the Minister of Justice, I mean, that's a pretty big deal in this country. Now, one big question which you might be asking is, why would they build a dog park here in the middle of Envigado and then suddenly make it a memorial place? Well, the reason is that this place is actually the building, the base for the building called Edificio Monaco. And if you know anything about Edificio Monaco, you'll know that this was Pablo Escobar's residence. He actually had this whole building here. His family, his wife, his kids, they would all live here. And then obviously when he died, they tore down the building. Now, the remains of the building have not been moved away. They're actually right here in the park. They are the wall. You can see that wall right behind me. That wall, all those rocks, all those stones, that was the rubble that was left over when they brought down Edificio Monaco, and that is where you can still see the remains of the building. But now, of course, the building has been leveled, it's no longer there, and they turned it into a dog park. But the history of this place, the fact that Escobar and his family used to live right here in a skyscraper that is no longer here, that is really, really chilling.
Hi. Oh, you're so cute. Hi. Hello. Oh, you're so cute.
Now this is going to be our last stop here in our tour of Pablo Escobar here in Medellin, and I know it's ending on quite a somber note because I'm literally showing you all the dead judges and ministers of this place. I mean, yes, there are some happy doggies, but that doesn't take away from the solemnness of this place. And I have to say, it is a really, really dark place when you think about the history, when you think about what happened here, when you think about those rocks literally for serving as the wall here, once being the base of a building that housed one of the greatest drug lords in history. It is very chilling. I would say it's been very interesting today to see all the different perspectives, to see people from Barrio Pablo Escobar really support him and be so thankful to this day that Escobar, you know, helped to build their homes, but then realize when you come here, all the politicians, all the judges, all the cops that Escobar killed in order to have his way, it's the result of a madman who wanted ambition, who wanted to be the king of Colombia. And it's definitely a warning because Colombia still faces the same issues. Many of the youngsters here in Colombia still believe that selling drugs, being a drug lord, is the way to make money. And the Colombian government is still fighting really, really hard to defeat that. So the problem is still there. And Escobar isn't just someone that popped out of nowhere. He is the result of a systematic problem, a failure within the Colombian government and the Colombian society. I mean, just look at what happened with Barrio Pablo Escobar. After Escobar dies, the government legalizes all the houses and wants to tax them. That's the only reason they legalized them. But yet, they still do not ever recognize Barrio Pablo Escobar. They just did not listen to the local community. They refused to acknowledge the problems of the local community, and that is exactly how Pablo Escobar stepped in with his money and gave it away to the locals in order to buy their trust. That's how he got into power in the first place. And the more we ignore that, the more people like Pablo Escobar are going to be popping up and creating more problems. Now, of course, Medellin has come a long way since then, and especially, I mean, literally, look at the condos behind me. That is incredible. But drugs are still a problem in Colombia. Selling drugs are still a problem in Colombia, and it's the fact that the youth still think, I mean, some people at least still think that it's a way to make money. On a more optimistic note, we are in a dog park. We have some very nice puppies playing around here. So in this moment of somber reflection in the infection park, we do have some dogs to keep us company, and that always brings me happiness. But with that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video here of the Pablo Escobar tour in Medellin. Sort of DIY. I know there are companies that literally do the entire tour, but we've sort of had fun with it. We've sort of done our own thing. I will have to say this is quite a long tour simply because you're hopping all around Medellin. Barrio Pablo Escobar is sort of in the eastern part of the city where he's killed, is sort of in the northwest. Then you have to go down to Envigado, which is south of Medellin, where he's buried, is sort of in the southwest, and then this park here is sort of in the southeast. So you're literally running in all four corners of Medellin. So if you plan on doing this, you can do it in the day. Just keep in mind, you're going to be on the metro all day. You're going to be running from place to place. And just sort of keep in mind, you probably need to dedicate an entire day to doing this itinerary because it's not exactly the easiest. Hello. Hello, puppy. Look at these dogs. They are so cute. Look at them. They're so... Oh my God. Well, anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely give it a thumbs up. I'm going to go ahead and play with the dogs, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye, guys.